Thank you. And first of all, I want to say what an impressive group of young people. You are all to be commended. You're sharp, you're polished, you're poised, and you're prepared. That says volumes for each and every last one of you. I'm running for re-election because there are so many things that have already been initiated and started in Roanoke. And as was mentioned in my bio, and I want to commend Ms. Penn for her doing such an admirable job of doing those introductions. But one of the things that was stressed to me as a young lady growing up by my parents, once you start something, you must see it through. And there are, as you have heard from the beginnings of today's forum, Roanoke is on a good path. But as you also have heard, there are so many things that still need to be addressed. I believe in, first of all, recognizing what needs to be done, and you certainly can't address what you don't first acknowledge. We have many great things that are going on in Roanoke that I definitely want to see through, and many things that I have been a part of in initiating that I most certainly want to see through. But at the same time, as my preparation as a guidance counselor and as an educator for 35 years in Baltimore City and in Roanoke City schools, I feel that I have those listening skills that are important. I have the patience that is also very important. But I have developed relationships with stakeholders who must see our city through. So consequently, for this and many reasons that I hope I have an opportunity to discuss with you tonight, those are some of the reasons I want to continue on Roanoke City Council. Thank you. That's an excellent question. Let me just focus for a moment on what's going on right here in the Gainesboro neighborhood. For those of us who remember the history of Roanoke, we remember that Gainesboro was a vibrant, alive community right here. In fact, the very first neighborhood of Roanoke, the Star City. Unfortunately, for many reasons, and we won't get into the debate of that, there was a significant demise and destruction of this community. But at least we acknowledge that happened. And now we're sitting here in what used to be the Dumas Theater. This theater is an example of how we can breathe life back into a community and back into a neighborhood. The Culinary Arts School across the street, another prime example of what is being done to help breathe life back into a community. We've talked so much about our village centers and how can we make all of our neighborhoods vibrant. Those of us who've seen what's going on in Brandon Court and the beauty and the businesses and the places to eat and walkability within the neighborhood, that's what we want to see back in Gainesboro. But before that can happen, we have to acknowledge that it needs to happen. And these two examples, the Dumas and the Culinary Arts School and the transformation that is coming to Gainesboro, those are examples of how we can make certain that we take care of all of our neighborhoods. That's an excellent question. We're in the process right now of beginning to start to interview the candidates that have come forward to serve on school board. Roanoke is in a kind of a unique situation in that we're one of the last of the few communities that still appoint our school board members as opposed to them being elected. The question that has been asked, what am I looking for in a candidate? And as I said, we're about to start interviewing. two qualities that I look for and I ask for our candidates in seeking appointment to school board is accountability. Accountability to our students, to our teachers, and to the district, to make certain that they understand all the ramifications and the fiscal responsibilities in running a public school district. And it's also important for school board members to remember the hierarchy of how a school board is operated. School board is in charge. The school board has the responsibility of hiring a school superintendent. So consequently, the superintendent is accountable to the school board. And unfortunately, sometimes that gets a little turned around. So to answer your question, I'm looking for someone who keeps the needs of this district up front first and is willing to not only ask the hard questions, but to continue to seek answers and not give up until they get an answer to those questions that have been raised within the district. This is such a heavy issue and question to answer. And for me personally, yes, I do think that profiling was involved, because unfortunately, it's a stigma that the African American community and those people of color continue to have to deal with. It happens, and for it to have happened right here in our own neighborhood, it's frightening. We watched over the last few months the tragedies that have occurred all over the country, and now it's visited right here. So to answer your initial question, unfortunately, I have to say yes, racial profiling was involved. Now, our NAACP leaders have asked repeatedly, to release the tape. So let's get to the bottom of what actually took place. What were the conditions that were happening at the time that young man was gunned down in the streets? And how can it be prevented? I only have a minute. And that's a heavy-duty question to answer in 2 minutes. Several of us, those of us who are mothers and grandmothers and parents of black children, we've had to have that conversation with our children. Who would have ever thought that we would, in 2016, have to continuously still have that conversation about your appearance, how you present yourself in public, how you address authority figures. We have to still continuously have that conversation. And that's another reason why I'm so delighted to see that these young people are doing just that. It's all about preparation. Will the day ever come that we don't have to have that conversation? I hope and pray that within my lifetime it happens. But as of today, right now, we all have to be cognizant of who we are as people of color, that we have to be mindful of who and how you carry yourself when you are in public and when you are in the face of law enforcement. Well, I'm very happy not to have to address that particular problem, but just to remind everyone that homelessness in Roanoke City is on the decline, and we had an initiative that was just recently started to specifically address the homeless population amongst our veterans. There's nothing sadder than for those who have already given service to their country, but then to come home and to find them on the streets. So as a council, we are certainly cognizant of the problem of homelessness, and will continue to address it. On a personal level, I think it's important that all of us as citizens remember that it's a problem that is addressing a across the board. As my colleague, Councilman Lee pointed out, we've got a population of those who are out on the streets who don't want to be helped. So consequently, we need to do what we can do to acknowledge that population and then do our fair share to encourage those folks to seek shelter. This past winter was certainly, one of the worst that we've endured. And I applaud folks like Grover Price, that has already been mentioned, that took the initiative to say, hey, you know what can I do as a person? What can we do within our church congregations and the faith-based community to look to see what can we do to collectively work to help those who are still homeless, and then to also acknowledge some of the barriers that maintain them being out on the streets. Thank you. First of all, I want to commend these young people because you reinforce my commitment for wanting to continue to serve you on Roanoke City Council. Several years ago, I reinstated our Youth Services Citizens Board. Right now, that's an adult board, and that board is responsible for coordinating services and resources that serve our youth and our families. This year, council doesn't know it yet, but this year, we're going to initiate a youth component of that Youth Services Board. I want you to know that there are youth councils around the country that conduct just this kind of forum where the youth are responsible for interviewing and posing the questions to potential candidates. So you have just reinforced exactly one of the reasons why I want to continue my work and make sure that initiative continues and is sustainable. I also want to take this opportunity to invite each of you to Roanoke City's 3rd Youth Summit. It will be held August 6th. It is the first Saturday in August. It will be held this year back at William Fleming High School. That is an opportunity for you, our youth, from middle school up to high school, to use your voice, to tell us what's on your mind, what are the issues that are relevant to you, and how can we as adult leaders help you to continue to be the best young people that you can be. Education has and always will be one of my passions. And it's so important to remember that education is your passport to the future, because the future belongs to those who prepare for it today. That's a quote from Malcolm X, and I love to use it because it certainly emphasizes why you are the shining leaders of the future. Thank you.